It's finally done. Off and on over the past month, I've been working on some pretty big new features for the Volatus test software stack. And we're looking at two new elements in this configuration here. Historian has actually existed for a bit. Like I said, I've been working on it off and on in between some other features I've recorded videos about recently. But this has gotten expanded a bit, and now there is the new charting based on the historian. So let's take a look at what this does before we talk about all of the configuration. So first thing, I ran the DAC application. This is a placeholder for embedded application running on a CRIO. It could be a primary console application for a desktop working with compact DAC chassis. I'm using this with simulated compact DAC chassis that I've configured in Max. So there's a whole bunch of simulated I/O modules on that chassis, and again, all of the code is universal. It just depends on which modules are configured to run as which applications. So even on this, I can open a GUI. Now, I've had charting in this software stack for quite some time. These little embeddable widgets that have been a good starting point for charting, but they have a couple of issues. First off, if you close and reopen a GUI, they reset and clear out. So they do fit anywhere. They're really great for putting things next to flow meters, next to commodity bottle scales, and easily keeping track of that information near where that exists in a process layout GUI. But what we want to do now is more. So I'm going to start what is intended to be the GUI application, and now there is this new historian charting entry in the GUI menu. So this is going to take a couple of seconds to get ready, and more like 15 as I listen to the cooling fan in my PC spool up my laptop. But now I have much more extensive charting capabilities. And if I wiggle some of these values again, we could see they show up in that chart. I can close that chart window, pull it back up, and it's still got that history. I've got this other feature where you can configure groups of charts with different plot and channel selections and quickly switch between different groups. So if I play around with some of these interlocked valves, you can see some transitions there. I can do stuff like type in new time windows. And with the tooltip here, we can see I can put in SM, H, or D for seconds, minutes, hours, or days. So this is meant to really cover a lot more use cases with generic charting abilities. In the plot legend here that I've done a custom implementation for, we can see I can turn visibility on and off. I can change if it's on the right scale or the left scale, customize the color, and configuring these is as easy as hitting this button, and I now get this GUI that lets me pretty quickly pick what channels I want to see plotted there. I've got a drop down so I can quickly switch between different things, and these settings, if they're selecting the same plot group, propagate across all charts. So I can come in and I can create a new plot group. So let's say I wanted one that shows me more detail over a shorter period of time, but I also wanted a longer history. So we'll set up this. Now I could have opened the fuel one that existed and done a duplicate of that. I will take the ones that are intended to be digital controls and move them over to the left. Why are those? Okay, that's just finished rescaling. And then set this to 10 minutes as intended. So now I've got two showing the same fuel channels, but one is let's make this 30 seconds. One is moving quickly at 30 seconds, one's moving slower, and I can see more history. And again, I could switch back to alpha, so let's change alpha to these guys. Beta is the two fuels. Alpha is aux and digital outputs. So now I have this ability to very quickly, while the program is running, I don't have to have these all defined ahead of time when I'm configuring the GUIs. And all of this is persisted to a user preferences file that lives local on the machine and is based on the name of the application being run. So if I go down here, and this is also the same file that saves which windows are open when the application is closed, what their position is. So this is something that's been getting used for a while. But now that's got the historian charting, and so it saves all of these configurations to this. So when the program starts back up, those same groups, plot groups and chart groups are available on that machine again. And one of the next things I'll be working on is adding some import and export buttons to this charting control GUI so that configuration could easily be exported to a JSON that could be sent to another console computer and then import those configurations to get the same selections of charts. I didn't want to make this part of the normal system configuration, that vJSON file that I've talked about a lot in these videos, because this really isn't test stand configuration. Could make the argument that if different operators are looking at different selections of channels, they might misinterpret data or anything like that. But as far as the test stand having the proper I/O configuration, the proper automation capabilities, things like that, this doesn't fall in that same category of configuration. So it is a little bit separate. And also, typically at the different consoles, different operators, at least for the use cases I'm covering, do want to look at different channels and have different channel groups. So there'll probably be a subset of common selections that everybody uses, and then during leak checks or commissioning or checkouts, anything like that, people would be making temporary chart configurations that they don't necessarily need to live long term or share with other operators. A couple of other bits about how this works is if I close a GUI and open it back up, it goes back to the same selection. I could just keep making new charts and pick any of those existing groups. And now when I go to beta, those second two aren't going to get changed because, well, they don't exist in the beta configuration. Once I were to, if I then pick those selections, now it knows that it needs to update those when I change chart groups. So just really easy to have a whole bunch of different charting configuration. And okay, it looks like having different numbers of charts isn't working properly. I've got a bug to fix. Wouldn't be a demo video without some bugs. And we can see as I open and close these charts, they do show up in the GUI manager window. So we've got chart 2 and 3. If I click new chart, it's going to create chart 1 again and whatever it had selected. If I close all of the windows and change the group selection and then open the group, it'll be for that active selected group. So this has been a bunch of work to get all of this, coordinating this many different asynchronous GUIs and coordinating with the central management of the data buffering. Took a while. This is probably like the second largest part of this entire software stack at the moment. But I'm really happy with where it's gotten to. So a couple more details about its configuration. So now with the, let me scroll down here, with the historian config, there's now this memory gigabyte entry. And if we look in the log and scroll back to the beginning, we could see that there's an entry here that historian is using buffer size of 765,306 elements. And that is for every channel that it is created a buffer for will have a buffer of that size. So 750,000 sample points per channel. And that includes the time buffers for each group of data. And that is all dictated by the amount of memory I'm telling the program to be able to use for the data buffers. So that's actually why, so let me close this program. That's why it took a while for the charting to be available for use. So we can see the memories drop down. As this is starting up, that historian module in the background is doing all of that buffer allocation ahead of time. So there shouldn't be any surprises as the program is running longer term that all of a sudden buffers overflow memory. And this is Community Edition, 32-bit version of LabVIEW. So I am using a pretty low memory amount here, which is still pretty hefty sizes for the buffers. And with that base usage of about 300, 400 megabytes for LabVIEW, we could see when I specify 1.5, we get to 1.9. So all of that works as expected. And again, I can open these charts back up and get back to the groups I had selected.